Hello and welcome to another video from the only source of information that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. And today's video is going to be about recovering old honey. Now, this isn't a video that I planned, it's just something that came up. I had no intention of making any video today. But I've got a friend that sells fruits and vegetables at the local farmer's market, and when her product gets old, she has to eat it herself. A lot of times she has too much leftover stuff to do that. So she calls me and I go get it. Now I have to go through and carefully sort through everything, cut all the bad spots off, and cook whatever she gives me that night, because normally it's way past due. But occasionally, as she's going through her house, she'll empty out her fridge or her freezer or her cabinets of things that she thinks are too old and give those to me as well, because she knows that, you know, I like to salvage food that most people would throw away. So this time around I went over and she had been cleaning. So she gave me some cans and she gave me some boxes and she gave me some fruits and vegetables, and I brought them home and went through them. And almost all of the stuff that was in boxes was unusable. It was just so old that it wasn't just the date on the box that was out, it was the actual contents that were out, because I took everything apart and looked at it. Fortunately, I have chickens and dogs, so nothing really went to waste. But one of the things she gave me was a gallon of honey. I noticed as soon as she gave it to me that it wasn't a full gallon. It was about 3/4 of a gallon. But it wasn't until I got home that I noticed that the gallon jug it was in was still sealed from the store. It had never been opened. You know, it was like a milk jug with one of those little rings around the lid, and the ring was still connected. So when I took the lid off, the ring came off, and I noticed that it was dripping. So the gallon jug had actually cracked from old age. When she gave it to me, it was in a Walmart bag. So apparently this thing had been leaking a lot over time, because that 1/4 of a gallon was not in that Walmart bag, but the entire inside of the Walmart bag was very sticky. The jug itself was like a solid chunk of sugar. You know, turning it upside down did not change its appearance. Nothing ran down into the lid. So what I've done is I've put my gallon of honey, set it in a bowl, and put it in this solar cooker so that over the course of the day it can heat it up enough that I can pour it out of the gallon and then process it further. I'd like to put, you know, since it did leak out, I'm going to let it sit in there for a full day to get it above boiling for a little while. And I may even add some water to it, but I don't know. But anyway, currently, it's starting to liquefy. I've been able to pour some out, and hopefully, if the sun allows, we'll have some usable honey at the end of the day. Yeah, the teaching is that honey never ever goes bad, but I do know that honey ferments, because that's what they make mead out of. You know, mead is an alcoholic beverage that's made of honey, and I think it's actually 1 part honey and 1 part water with a little bit of yeast and about a week of sitting, and it's fermented enough that you can get drunk off of it. But anyway, I'll show you what this looks like. I'm not able to shut the lid on this because it bumps into the gallon of honey, but at the same time, I really didn't want to. With this lid down, the temperatures go up to about 325, which will melt that plastic. So that wasn't the results that I wanted. By leaving it up, the temperature is staying right around 150 degrees. So at 150 degrees over the course of the day, that should all liquefy. And then tomorrow, once I'm able to pour this into that container, I should be able to shut the lid and bring this up to boiling. Everything was going pretty good out there until it started raining. The plan, when I first set this all up, is if it started raining, or if it got too cloudy, just to bring everything in and get it all going again tomorrow. But when I had most of my jug re-liquefied, I figured I better keep the process going. And it was pretty good. Once I got enough of it turned into liquid and I got it into a pot, I could put the jug down in there and heat the pot with the jug. That way I wasn't melting the pot on the stove top. So anyways, here's the result. I actually probably got 3 quarts of honey out of this, and it's made a real mess. Everything in here is sticky, but you know, it's honey. Honey's pretty expensive. There's my first jar. It's pretty hot. And here's the second jar waiting for me to pour the honey in. I actually poured that last jar without getting any on this funnel, but I'm sure that's not going to remain the case. Ooh, this is so sticky. Heating it up actually evaporated somewhat, so it's really thick and it's really, really dark. It's way darker than any honey I've had before, I think. And it'll turn back into sugar. It's not like this is something you're going to have to do every day, but if you're like me, you are going to have to do it to every jar of honey you buy because you just don't eat that much of it. And, you know, after having this same jar for 6 months, when you go to get it, it's going to be crystallized, and so that's what you have to do. You know, the way we always did it is, before we got a solar cooker, is just we would get water really, really hot on the stove and put the entire jar in the water. Or if it was in a glass jar that we could take the lid off of, just pop it in the microwave. But these new, the honey you get now is normally in a little plastic container. And if you put it in the microwave, it seems that the plastic starts melting before the honey melts. So this is what you have to do. Anyway, let me get back to what I was doing. Good thing about having a funnel, even if you got really wide mouth jars and you're confident that you can pour it in, is that any honey or anything that you get on the rim of the jar is going to cause the lid to get stuck on there, and you're going to have to go through all kinds of commotion to get the lids off. It's hard to believe I'm going to have a lot of honey here left over. I mean, these are quarts. I'm putting a gallon jug of honey into quart jars. That means if it was full, I should be able to do this with 4 jars. But it wasn't full. It was about 3/4 of a gallon when I started. I'm not familiar with the rules of canning, but I'm starting to think that it's not really canning. I mean, these quarts are not quarts unless you actually fill them all the way up to the rim. Which kind of makes sense. You know, you want to get all the air out of the jars. That's it. I may try to pour the last little bit out. You know, honey's so expensive, you hate to even waste a drop, but I felt like I lost about a quart just on my fingers. So I've got a gallon of honey here. I may actually one day get the urge to make wine again for some reason. If I do, I may use this stuff to make some mead. Okay, this is going kind of slow. I know my friend Judy that gave this to me had it for years, and that she never used it, so there's no point in giving her back a jar full of it now that I've melted it back down into liquid form and got it cleaned up for her. But I'll offer it. I'll tell her I was able to salvage it and ask her if she wants a jar. There you have it. 4 quart jars, nearly filled to the top, with honey that I didn't pay for and which my friend was going to throw away. So, just keep in mind, if you ever get honey that sits too long and it turns into sugar, all you got to do is figure out a way to heat it up and it'll go back to being a liquid. Oh well, if you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.